What's going on, my guys? Back at it again, Lost and Found Dating channel. Now this is part 2 of a 2-part series on how to pursue and date a woman whom maybe you're intimidated by. So I'm gonna dive straight into this topic. Hopefully you guys have watched part 1 already. If you haven't, make sure that you click the button up top. And in the first video, I talked about some of the different factors outside of the woman being very attractive that often tend to intimidate guys or cause them to be apprehensive about asking her out or pursuing her or approaching her. And in that video, I talked about age being one of the factors. Number 2 being her personality, and sometimes that has a lot to deal with what she does for a living or her job or her career. And then number 3, I touched on approachability and a guy maybe looking at the woman and seeing how she's interacted with other guys before and making the decision that this is a woman who is unapproachable or isn't interested in dating at the moment. So in this video, what we're gonna focus on is some tips and some strategies on how to overcome that fear, overcome that apprehension based on those 3 different scenarios. So number 1, let's talk about age. So as I touched on in the last video, let's say this is a woman who's older than you and you come to the conclusion that because she's older, she wouldn't really see me as a viable dating option. You know, she's older than me, I don't even have a chance. I shouldn't even bother, trying to approach her or trying to pursue her or asking her out because she's not gonna give me the time of the day because I'm younger than her. Now, in my experience, and this is just from my point of view, when it comes to a lot of women out there, when it comes to their expectations and whom they choose to date, it's a lot more about your maturity level and how you conduct yourself and how you behave than it is about your actual age. Now, often those are things, we assume that if someone's older, they're gonna be more mature, and a lot of times that's true, but sometimes that isn't always the case. And like I said, for a lot of women out there, if they're older than you, but you conduct yourself maturely and you behave like a mature adult, that's something that they're able to overlook. Obviously, when you're talking about something like a 20-year gap, for some women out there, depending on what they're looking for and what their expectations are as far as that guy, for some of them, that's 20 years is just too big of an age gap. And, to be quite honest, that's understandable. For some of them, that's, when you're talking about 10 or 15 or 20 years, some women just aren't gonna be able to overlook, that large of an age gap difference. Not all of them, but again, some of them, depending on what they're looking for and what their expectations are, they're not gonna be able to overlook that age difference. But aside from those instances, I would say a lot of women out there when it comes to dating are looking for just a guy with maturity, especially emotional maturity when it comes to emotions and how you communicate and how you behave, and just a guy with a sense of direction or a sense of purpose in life. If you're a guy and you have a respectable source of income, something that has the potential for growth and expansion, something that enables you to have some sort of financial stability, especially if when you talk about long-term relationships and how things look down the road, that's a great thing to have. If you have your own place, if you live life as an independent adult, most women are going to value and appreciate those qualities, and a lot of them will focus on that as opposed to how old you are. So when you have those different qualities and you have those things going for yourself, for a lot of women out there, that satisfies their criteria as far as the maturity and as far as the life progress qualities that they're looking for. If you're a guy out there and you conduct yourself with maturity, if you dress maturely, if you're level-headed, if you communicate and carry yourself like an adult, for a lot of women out there, that speaks more volume about you than how old you are. And they're willing to overlook 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 year age gap. If you have those other qualities, because there's some women out there who've dated guys who are the same age as them, and maybe those guys lack those qualities, but you're a guy who's a lot younger than them and you do possess them and they choose to date you. So like I said, usually if you have those things going for yourself, a lot of women out there, if you're pursuing them and they're older, they're gonna be willing to overlook that age gap. And it's not something that they're gonna factor in when it comes to choosing to date you or not. So with all that being said, you never want to disqualify yourself from pursuing a woman or from the prospect of dating her just because she's older than you. At the end of the day, shoot your shot, see what happens. You never know, what she may see in you and what she may value and what she sees that you bring to the table and how that may influence her decision as far as whether she dates you or not. So now that we've covered age, let's talk about personality. And when I say personality, more specifically, I mean assumptions that you may be making about her personality based on her job or her career choice. Guys, I've learned that you can never take someone's job or what they do for a living and make assumptions about how they behave in a dating context based on that. I don't care whether she's a lawyer or a police officer or teacher, doctor, nurse, whatever the case may be. It doesn't matter what she does. You never want to take that title or take that job and then make assumptions about how she behaves towards the guys she dates based on that. You just have to get to know the woman and learn about her and see how she responds to your pursuit or your approach towards her. You can't make the decision, because she does this for a living, that she's gonna be sweet and kind and affectionate and nurturing, or because she does this, she's gonna be very stern and very serious and not gonna laugh at my jokes. You just have to kind of get to know them and see how she's gonna behave and how she's gonna respond to you based on the dates that you go on. And I'll give you guys a personal example. Those of you who've been following this channel for a while or have been watching some of my videos know that I'm a self-employed personal trainer. When it comes to dating and in the context of dating and relationships, a lot of people assume that because I'm a trainer, when I'm behaving or interacting with a person who I'm dating, they assume that I'm very serious, or I don't have a sense of humor, or I don't smile, or I try to be very intimidating and I'm not very approachable, or they assume that the person that I'm dating, they have to be just as into working out as I am. Those are assumptions that people make about me and my personality just based on the fact that I'm a trainer, just based on the fact that I'm leading people and giving them instruction in the gym. People extrapolate that and see me as the stereotypical trainer who's very tough on people, very critical, very opinionated, those kinds of things. Meanwhile, in reality, I love to smile, I love to joke around, I have a great sense of humor, I like being a personable person, and I don't treat the people I'm dating like I'm their personal trainer. I don't expect them to be just as passionate about working out as I am. So in the same way where I wouldn't want someone to assume something about my personality because I'm a personal trainer, you don't want to assume different characteristics or attributes about the woman just because she's a lawyer or politician or whatever sort of field she works in. Just take the time to get to know her and see how she responds to you, see what characteristics she starts to display as you guys continue to date. And I will tell you guys from personal example, I've dated a woman who worked as a corrections officer, with inmates, with people who had violent, aggressive tendencies. And, I'm sure she had to conduct herself a certain kind of way, at her job. But when it came to us dating, she was always smiling, loved to laugh, very playful, very affectionate, great sense of humor. And I've also been on the opposite side of the spectrum where I've dated women who were teachers or who worked with kids for a living. and they just came across as very cold, very distant, very low emotional energy, not very affectionate, not very, playful whatsoever. And I'd be thinking to myself, like, wait, you work with kids? Like, is this the kind of energy that you have around them? So that goes to show you guys, you can never take what someone does for a living and assume that's how they're gonna behave in a dating context. And the same thing goes for women who are older than you. You don't want to assume just because she's older that she's not going to be, fun-spirited or not going to be playful. People mature as they get older, but it doesn't mean that they lose sight of their fun and playful characteristics. It doesn't mean that as she ages, she's not going to be playful with you, or she's not going to be affectionate, or that she's not going to like to laugh and have a good time just because she's older. Another thing that you guys have to understand is that not all women, but some of them are in fields where traditionally women aren't seen as competent in that field, or women who are in that line of work aren't really respected as much as guys who are in that same line of work are respected amongst their peers. So in order to command that same level of respect that some of their male colleagues or counterparts receive, they have to emphasize certain aspects of their personality, such as being very stern or being very assertive or being very stoic and not responding emotionally to different situations. However, that doesn't mean that outside of work, outside of the workplace, that she's unable to demonstrate her sense of humor and her playfulness and some of those different things. So there's a lot of factors that are sometimes at play when you talk about a woman and her job and the personality that you think she may have because of that job. So we talked about age, we talked about personality, and your assumptions about her personality based on her line of work. Last thing we're going to touch on is approachability. So let's say you're apprehensive about approaching her, or you're intimidated by her because you've seen her reject or be dismissive towards other guys as you've maybe watched her interact with them. One thing is that she may be in a relationship with someone, and that's why she's rejecting this guy or dismissive of him. And let's say she's in a relationship, or maybe she's just not interested in dating anyone at the moment. The second thing to consider is, in this example, let's say this is a woman who you see a lot out at a bar or a lounge or whatever the case may be, and you see how she reacts towards guys. Unless you're physically standing there and you can hear what their conversation is, you never know what the guy said that caused her to react that way. Maybe he said something that was rude or arrogant, or he just said something that she didn't like, and that caused her to have that elevated response or to be, extra dismissive towards him. So you never know what the dynamic is. Maybe there's history between them two. Maybe they used to date before and he tried to rekindle things and she just wasn't about it at all. So you never want to assume, just because you see a lot of guys approach her and she turns them down, you never want to assume that, oh, she's unapproachable. Maybe it means that she doesn't want to be approached that night, but you never want to assume that this is a woman who in general is unapproachable or isn't open to dating or being in a relationship. In addition to that, I've met a lot of women myself who came across as standoffish, either consciously or unconsciously, just because that was kind of their default strategy whenever a guy tried to approach them. Maybe it's their way of filtering certain guys out. So I approached them and they came off as standoffish or dismissive. And then as we started to talk, they kind of let their guard down once they saw how I was communicating with them and sort of how I was pursuing them. A lot of women will intentionally try to come across as unapproachable or try to come across as intimidating because they feel like that's their way to filter out guys who aren't worth their time or aren't worth their attention. And then once they start to get to know you or learn about you a little bit during the conversation, they'll kind of let their guard down once they determine, okay, he seems like a guy who I will allow to approach me and pursue me, and maybe we can move the interaction even further. You know, when it comes to approaching women and how they behave sometimes when they're approached, do I think women want to be respected when they're approached? Absolutely. Do I think women will filter guys out based on whether they think he's worthy of their time and attention? Absolutely. But I think if you ask most women if they want to be feared or seen as intimidating by a guy whom they actually like, I think most of them will tell you that they don't want to come across as that way. You know, they may use it as a strategy to filter out certain guys, but most women know, okay, if this is a guy who I like, who I want to pursue me and who I want to ask me out on dates, they're not gonna want to come across as, you know, overbearing or intimidating or standoffish to that guy. All right, guys, so wrapping this thing up, those were some of my tips and strategies on overcoming some of your fears or sense of intimidation or sense of apprehension when it comes to approaching a woman because of her age or assumptions about her personality or how inviting and approachable you find her to be. Hope you guys got some valuable nuggets from this video. If you did, make sure you like the video. Feel free to comment down below. And thank you guys for watching. Also want to emphasize that if you did enjoy this video and if you are enjoying the content we've been putting out, make sure you subscribe to the channel. That way you'll be the very first to know, numero uno. You'll be the first to know when we come out with new content and you'll get that notification. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Catch you next time. Peace.